welcome to this week's AI Would Agree. I had a little bit of technical difficulties. Apologise for the slightly later start time than normal, but not to worry, we are here. We do plan on running till 30:30. We've got a good 20 minutes. So without any further ado, let me bring Eóin McCoy to the show. Eóin, welcome.
Thank you very much, Paul.
How
Happy
you
to be
doing? All
here.
right?
I'm doing well. How are you?
It's yeah, fantastic. Yeah, it's busy. It's a busy period, September. It's
Surely is.
everybody's back wanting to get back to full steam ahead on all their projects and still only 24 hours in a day as well, which is a problem for most of us parents, right?
Nice to hear everybody else experiences the same challenges.
Absolutely. So same questions I asked most of our guests are in. And without doubt it'll have been by mistake or by accident, chance, happenstance, because nobody ever plans to get into contact centers. But how did you get into contact centers?
Yeah. So I've watched quite a few of these, so I realize what the cliched response is meant to be. And I suppose it's a half truth in my regard. So I had recently left college, and my family had emigrated to Canada, and I had decided that this was the big bad moment in my life where I was going to strike out as an independent. But I didn't have a job. So I applied. It was America Online actually had a very big contact center in Waterford at the time, and I applied. I actually applied initially for customer service, and which is unfortunately a typical me story. When I showed up on the day, there were a number of different recruitment drives for a number of different departments. I got talking to a couple of people and ended up staying in that group. And it wasn't until the Wednesday that I realized I was in the sales group. So I was asked by the trainer if, I'd gone this far, would I like to continue? And I said, sure, look, I'd enjoyed what I'd heard up to that point. So it's, a little by accident, I suppose, poor at taking instructions. And that's it. So I was an ambassador in a retentions department for about 3 years, taking calls, and then moved into management, and I managed a few sales teams. And the how I got into L&D was probably more by accident than how I found myself in contact centers. And that the L&D team was stretched beyond belief at the time, and I had stepped in to lend a hand. As the story often goes, nobody asked me back in operations, so I'm not sure what that says about me. And that was about 16 years ago. And so yeah, I think I stopped calling it a job now, right? Because I mean, 16 years qualifies as a career in some worlds.
Certainly
So
does.
yeah,
Certainly does. It's fascinating. I always think of L&D, no matter what business you're in, it's usually a calling, and
yeah,
it's almost certainly dead man's shoes to get into the job.
yeah,
Pardon the description, but it is literally somebody's done something wrong somewhere, or they've decided they're calling their career a day,
100%.
or whatever. And they really are hard roles to find. And they're usually filled by super passionate people. Very rarely do I come across, there's a lot of passionate people in L&D, but very rare that I come across somebody that has quite your passion for both the people and the metrics, but also the technology that sits behind all of that as well.
Sure.
And I guess that's how we ended up. We initially started talking. Um, what's your, I guess, your overall ethos around training and learning? Because I'm conscious that it's two different things.
Yeah. Oh,
Two very
100% it
different
is.
things.
Yeah, 100%. It's a really good question, and I often, honestly, I often think about it because I think if you don't remind yourself from time to time why you get into it, especially when the job gets dirty, and every job gets dirty, like do you know what I mean? Where you wonder what, if anything, the contributions that have been put in, what does it yield? Honestly, I think the fact that I get to call what I do a career now is what keeps me going. And what I mean by that is, I see what my job is, my role within not just this business, but in terms of what I do, as giving other people the opportunity that was afforded to me when I first started. Because like that's what it was, right? It was an opportunity. Somewhere somebody said, give them a chance, like, and that's it. Regardless of how the interview went, regardless of what people thought I might be able to bring to the table, somebody said, okay, put up and shut up time. And so I see that my role is to do that as much as possible, really. And whether that be, we might define that differently. I mean, in the business speak, it might be, uncovering talent, or, developing the right type of candidates, or success plan, whatever the case may be. But actually, fundamentally, what it comes down to is, I see that my role is to elevate other people, not to elevate them for the sake of elevating them, like, to work with them, to be able to identify what somebody's strengths are. Because if there's one thing, if there's one thing that galls me sometimes about contact centers, is how easy it is to see when somebody's not doing something, because we can see that in the moment, right? Like, we can hear it live. If we want to hear it live, we can check it the next day, and we often see what the number is that we need to be hitting versus the number that we did ultimately hit. And so there's like this natural pull or push into, describing failure, or becoming really overly articulate about what failure is, or what constitutes failure. And I think when you can kind of, when you get into that and you don't question that, it just, I think we become the cliche. Like, we all know what the cliche of contact centers is, and I've heard many people talking about it kind of in some of your previous interviews. So we know what the cliche is, and it's a shame, because I think it's a hell of a lot more than that. I think that if we're as articulate in describing success, what success looks like, reinforcing success, valued work behaviors, when we become articulate in those areas, then it elevates the conversation. I mean, it has to elevate the conversation, but I think more to that, we're coming to the table with tangible things that we can present to the people that we're working with, coaching, training, whatever the case may be, and we're giving them an actual path, not a map. Like, a map is all well and good, but
Mhm.
you don't get to see where the bumps in the road are by looking at a map. You have to walk it.
Yeah. I'd imagine that whole process has changed a lot over the last 2, 3 years due to COVID, right?
Yeah, we had to react to circumstance, and I think businesses, I don't think we like it in business. Any business likes having to react to circumstance. I think we would much rather champion the notion that we're leading the charge, or we're creating the path for other businesses to go by. But yeah, like COVID, we ultimately had to move our entire offering, our entire onboarding process online, and it was nearly a lift and shift, as opposed to a customization, by virtue of the fact that now it has to be online. So yeah, so the good news was we did it, and the good news was we were able to run global kind of onboarding programs, and that's more a testament to the training team themselves, the designers, the developers of the content, the IT groups, the support structure that exists to be able to carry people when they come out of those classrooms. I think it's more a testament to them. I think long term, what it's going to look like, though, is like there has to still be a place for face to face. There's no two ways about it. But I think the direction that we're taking at the moment, Paul, and I know it's early days, and it could change rapidly tomorrow, but the direction we're taking at the moment is we're evolving our training offering based on the requirements of our audience. So it's not to evolve it for the sake of evolving it so that we can sit down in LinkedIn and say, we use this technology and it's amazing. But it's evolving based on, at the end of the day, when the learners are coming through, like, what's their feedback? What's their feedback around specific modules, the approach that was taken? What's their feedback or their suggestions around how that can be done differently? And further to that, what about the trainer themselves? Like, what's their feedback? And so we have to continually evolve. So I like that where that's probably going to be taking us is a lot more like micro learning opportunities, and you
Mhm.
know embracing more, I think, that the technological sphere, insofar as creating those walkthrough processes that people can view at their own leisure, and then creating like open workshops at the back end of that, maybe 2 or 3 days later. So you still have access to your subject matter experts, you still have access to your trainers, but it's a completely different, I think, type of a relationship now. So you're coming into that meeting having gone through the process, you're coming through that, having identified what the new path is. So you're sitting down now, and instead of an end-to-end training sphere in that workshop, what it is now is, well, I've looked at it, I've gone through it, I've done the certification, I've applied the learning. but like, here are my questions. Here's where I see the gaps are. So it becomes a lot more involved. I think it becomes a lot more focused. So we've seen some success on the back of that at this moment in time. I think ultimately though, learning has to be available. Learning can't be anymore like there's training on your calendar. You come into a training class.
Yeah.
That day is gone, and that's had its day. Tomorrow's the interesting one.
Yeah, I think there's some parallels that you can draw there between kind of where you guys have gone with that use of that technology and the use of the online learning and where we try and focus in terms of what we do. And it's about giving the right information to the right people at the right
Sure.
time. And I think that's crucial. And whether that's learning information, whether it's metrics, whether it's insights, it doesn't really make any difference. And I think COVID's kind of accelerated that for a lot of
Yeah.
people in terms of let's use the technology to identify what it is that we can do remotely, what we can do at the right time, and then get back to doing the human stuff
100%.
as humans together, the important stuff, not the mundane stuff that can be automated. Let's automate what we can, right? And that's not to say that we need a lower head count to do what we're going to do. Like that's not the
Completely agree.
point. It's about making that time that we do spend together much more effective and engaging because I've been a coach. I've been different
Yeah.
environment, but I've been a coach, and there's nothing worse than sitting there trying to figure out, all right, who am I going to coach? What am I going to coach them on? What metrics am I going to look at? Like,
Absolutely.
what am I going to get battered for at the end of this month of my manager? Because that's what motivates me.
Yep.
And let's figure out who I can batter first. Because that's how it ends up. And it shouldn't be that. It should be,
Completely.
who are the people that need my support and how can I support them?
Absolutely. Because and you're dead right, because like when the integral parts of what our roles are becomes nothing more than a tick box exercise, then we have to question we have to question its value. I think what COVID has also allowed us to do across the board, not just within contact centers, is to actually sit down now and have the conversation that maybe we should have had a long time ago, which is like, where are we directing the majority of our learning at this moment in time, and for what reasons, right? Like, I mean, traditionally speaking, we've directed our learning at the customer facing aspect, so the agents, right? So we sit down and we train the agents on something, and we step back, and then we whatever terminology you want to use, but effectively we make sure that they're doing it, and if they're not, well, we already have these processes in place to manage that. And I think that it's flawed, right? So like, where do you get more value? And I think that's really the question. Do you get more value bringing 20 agents into a training room and taking them through how to, I don't know, perform a sale within your own kind of parameters? Or do you sit down with the mid managers? Do you sit down with the team leads or the supervisors? Do you engage with them? Now, I would argue that you should always go to the supervisors, right? When we talk about culture, nobody ever talks about culture and says, well, culture is from my mood is dependent on what my agent's mood. Like, not at all. Like, it's top down stuff, and I think it can be galling sometimes. Like, we in business, we often say the right things, especially when it comes to like the shop window, right? You know what, the street view, like, we do these and we value these. And yet the numbers, the Glassdoor reviews, the attrition rates all suggest something else.
Yeah.
If you're not willing to abide by the things you tell everybody that you're going to do, then what else are you missing? You know what I mean? And I think, like, in terms of transformative learning, it should only start at a management level. Because if you buy into management as such, if the management can buy into the program itself, then naturally they're going to support that program on the back end. We have to stop thinking that training is an event that happens between this and this time on your calendar. And because you've been trained, you need to then magically just be able to do the thing that we now expect you to do. Hell no. Like, if there's
Yeah.
no support on the back end of that, if that's not being facilitated, supported, coached on the back end by the operational management team, then we're goosed. You have a training department, grant, but that training, like you said, that's training. That's sure as anything, not learning and development.
Yeah.
So
And also, I
it
guess
lets us have that. Sorry,
there's an element of focusing on the coaches' development themselves. There's too
100%.
many businesses out there that just kind of
Yeah.
promote somebody from the teams, and contact centers are great at promoting from within. It's
Yes.
it's almost a given that the best person in the team, sometimes not always the best leader for the team, but
Correct.
the best person at the job before will get promoted. And And then we almost assume that they're going to be a good coach within a couple of weeks. And well, why are you not hitting your metrics? End of month one, end of month two, why are you not hitting your metrics? Why are your team not performing?
Yep.
Give
There you
those
go.
guys.
And like I said, it's like it then feeds back, Paul, into what we started this conversation with, which is we become articulate in all the reasons as to why people aren't hitting their metrics, right? And it's a fallacy. It's a sunk cost, really, if anything. So yeah, like I completely agree. I think that, like, you mentioned a really interesting point as well about contact centers. I think you want to be a trainer, like you want to be a trainer, and that's what you want your career to be. Go to a contact center. You want to be in HR, go to a contact center. IT, go to a contact center. Why? Well, because the sheer volume of work that comes in and goes out, whether that's ramp plans or otherwise, the examples, the scenarios that you will see in 6 months in a
Yeah.
contact center will
Well,
far outweigh any other industry. So we should be championing that as contact center leaders. We should be championing that. Like, this is as much a springboard environment for people than it is a final destination, and I think we need to talk more about those things, because I think that's ultimately what it is. I've worked with some amazing trainers that will far surpass anything I was ever able to do, and I'm proud of having worked with them. But they've bounced into other industries, and in other businesses, and that's what you can use a contact center for. And I think contact centers need to get smarter around the messaging.
yeah, 100%, 100%. I think, like I always say this, the same as retail's exactly the same.
Yeah.
Nobody ever intends to get into retail.
Yeah.
There's all this talk of shelf stackers and things like that, but ultimately very, very similar environment, very fast paced, lots of variety. And no matter what, you can be a pilot in retail.
Yeah.
What other industry can say that? If you want to
100%.
be a pilot, go work for Tesco and you can be a pilot. Like, that's amazing. But I think, for me, it's like my passion's always been around learning, development, and coaching
Mm,
people. I think that's clear from all the posts that I put out. Like, that's what's my
yeah.
background, and I like seeing people improve their life quality by making the right decisions and by getting
Agreed.
coached. And kind of when you turned around to me the other day and said that, obviously we've deployed our coach solution with you guys, and I know it's been a huge success, but the measure of that success has always been, for me, where people pull that towards themselves. And when you said that there's people from other campaigns asking, can we get our hands on that technology? That's powerful. Like,
100%.
I'm not going to say money goes away, because ultimately all businesses are out to make money, right? But for me, well, like why I come to work is to help make that sort of difference.
Absolutely.
That was fantastic to hear.
But Paul, like, so you talked about coaching, right? And like the fundamental aspect of coaching is accountability, right? And like that that's what we forget sometimes. Like, it's about accountability. Ultimately, let's answer the question: who does what by when? I mean, that's a question that needs to be answered. But then what comes after that is accountability. How can we expect people to be accountable for stats that they can't see, don't have access to, and can't pull up at a moment's notice? Ultimately, you can't, right? So I think what to be fair, what TMAC has offered us now is that accountability. But it's completely changed the conversation as well. The conversation moves from why are the targets that way. I can see that actually the average of where the team is at the moment is actually over the target, and this is where I am. So now the question, the conversation, and the coaching interaction becomes, well, what are they doing? And like, I mean, that's transformative. When somebody can ask that, that's transformative, because now what we have is, and what TMAC has afforded us is, we see the numbers. That's fine. But we now are able to identify the valued work behaviors behind those numbers. And so where we see that we're attaining numbers or exceeding metrics, it allows us now to completely focus our resource, whether that's our quality teams or otherwise. It allows us to completely focus our resources around the behaviors that people are exhibiting to hit those numbers. So when it comes to my team and I, it affords us the chance then to sit down with a formula that we know works, not because we pulled it from Google or bought it from here, there, or anywhere, because we've designed and developed this in-house with our own people, with behaviors that are actually being used. And so we're able to then create programs around that. So it's that complete kind of loop, that feedback loop, and what feeds in, I think, ultimately kind of to training, what the findings are from the coaching interactions. But it's not to be understated. I think having a system like this allows us to hold people to a different level that maybe otherwise we wouldn't have been able to.
It's fantastic, and that's, that hearing that is for us. Like I said, we've always been an outcomes driven company, and
Mm.
and me and you haven't really caught up since we went live with the
True.
deployment earlier this year. It's been a busy year. So for me, it's fantastic to hear that it's transformed the way you guys do the coaching. And I know from the conversations that we had before, that's exactly what you guys were asking for. You wanted to be able to do that. You knew it was possible. And hats off to you guys. Like it's been a pleasure kind of working with you guys, and I can see the expansion that's going on in
Yeah.
Nemrith right now. You guys are really going places, and to be part of that journey is humbling, to be fair.
No, and that's look, that's really nice of you to say. And God knows, I mean, certainly in my personal life, I like taking for credit. I taking credit for things I have no business taking credit for. So with respect, kind of like we've always had a really, really good supervisor team. We've always had really, really good learning and development specialists as well. What the common denominator, which each and every one of them is that they honestly care. Like, I mean, like they do. It's about people, it's about development, it's about affording people opportunities that otherwise might not have been afforded to them. Like, so we have, in terms of expectations, I think everybody's on the same page. So anything that we can do any tool that we can give them in their resource kit is always going to step us in the right direction. But what I love about it as well is it's not technology for the sake of technology. That drives me bananas when I see it in businesses. Yeah, I think George Todd in one of your interviews, gamification on its own doesn't work. I mean, it's just that needs to be said a lot more and a lot louder. I think that was a great statement.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, unfortunately, as much as I'm enjoying this conversation, I'm going to have to call an end to it there because I've got another meeting that I need to jump into. So hopefully we've packed as much as we can into this session. Everybody's really enjoyed it. I've certainly enjoyed catching up with you all.
Oh,
And
I've
I think
enjoyed it too.
let's do a round two in the new year where we can circle back around and uncover it in a bit more depth. But great to catch up, and
Yeah,
thank you very much
absolutely,
for your
Paul.
call.
Thanks for the opportunity again.
No problem at all. Take care,
You
and
too. God
we'll
bless.
see you all again next Thursday at 3 p.m. Bye bye.
Bye now.